and personal self-discovery. I think that was founded around very negative and consistently toxic experiences I was having, um, and that I was trying to recover from. And I guess it's as Tony Robbins said that true change comes when the cost of staying the same is greater than the cost of change. And for me, I knew something had to change.
Hello and welcome to the Who's Going to Stop Me podcast. Join us on an exciting journey to the depths of the human mind and soul of those who have been successful, of those who have been maybe where you want to go. I promise you one thing and one thing only by listening to this podcast, and that is a life that is more full, that is more exciting, and that will bring you more fulfillment. This episode features Deepak Shukla. He is the founder of the Pearl Lemon Group, who focus on search engine optimization, lead generation, amongst other digital marketing activities. He talks about how to build your business, how to increase sales with pragmatic, actionable advice from someone who's closed hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in sales himself. He juggles running ultra-marathons and marathons all over the world with running a real estate company, Forex trading, and the Pearl Lemon Group, as just mentioned. This episode was truly inspiring and touching. We talk about his personal journey through therapy and abusive relationships to a point of true passion, purpose, and success that he has now achieved in his life. It's a bit of a tearjerker. Truly inspiring, so many golden nuggets in this episode. So sit back, grab a coffee, and enjoy.
Thank you for the introduction, Mike. It's good to be talking to you. Dude, I remember when we were considering, were you living in Old Street and I was looking for a place to move? And then I was potentially thinking about the idea of moving in with you, and I came to see basically the flat. Was it Old Street? I don't know if you remember.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a horrible apartment.
Dude. But it's cool, it reminds us of where we came from. And I mean, I think maybe even before that, you were commuting from, like, obviously your family home. I remember starting at my mum's house, and it's just cool to know that we're here now on your podcast, and just the journey, if you will, because I remember my dorky YouTube interview of yourself as well for my channel, and it's just surreal also to know that I'm here talking to you, as you're saying, like, migrating to Canada basically, and it's damn cool, man.
It was me in the old street. I remember it was like a very old apartment, and we've kind of stayed in touch. So I've seen your progression, and honestly, there are some people that I always know, okay, this he's working on things, he's gonna break through. And you kind of hopped around a little bit before. I think you were trying different things, trying out different platforms and seeing what works. But now I see you like crushing it, traveling the world, participating in ultra marathons, like running, like, I don't know how many businesses. So it's really inspiring to see your progress. And that's why I had to get you on.
Well, thank you, man. I think that, certainly, to directly answer some of your questions, I guess, I think that, I definitely enjoy, like, I'm not a man of deep focus. I think that, one of the things I've come to recognize is I'm not very good at doing just one thing. It doesn't sit well with me, in spite of reading books, literature, and a lot of stuff about the importance of focus and building building one thing and focusing upon that. And it's something that I've embraced, which I didn't necessarily do before. And I think that has been a big kind of part of my success and keeping me interested in everything that I do. I think that one of the things I found that sometimes people don't necessarily always do as effectively as they should is to kind of just maximize the time that we have. and making the most of the hours that there are in the day. And I recognize that almost over the last couple of years, certainly, in reference to the 4:30 a.m. club, as you spoke about, I've recently started getting up at 4:30 every day, regardless of the time that I go to bed. So yesterday I got to bed at midnight in the end because I was at my sister's place, and I'm probably going to take a nap for about 45 minutes or for an hour after this, and then kind of keep on going. I I found that multitasking and doing lots of things at once is definitely productive when you do maximize the time that you have available to you. And I think that for me, one of the things that became important was the zeroing out of kind of dithering, which often centers, I think, around the thought process with which we apply to things. So, my to give you an example, decision to start the 4:30 a.m. club really came as a consequence of me talking to a friend of mine who is a fan of Jocko Willink. He's the founder of Echelon Front. You might have heard of him, to be honest with you. He's kind of a popular figure online. But he posts this thing on Twitter. He's like a former he's a former Navy SEAL. But he posts on Twitter basically his watch waking up at kind of 4:30 a.m. every day. And literally on a whim, we said, oh, why don't we try waking up at 4:30? Like the 4:30 a.m. club. He doesn't kind of call it a club, so to speak, but we created a little group. Him, Scott, and myself. We added like one or two more people. Literally, I tried it for like 2 days, and I just thought the idea was fun and cool. Every morning at 4:30, basically, there's about 23 of us in a WhatsApp group, and everyone just says literally like 4:30 a.m. check, and you check in. You then have to take your cell phone to the shower. You got to record a video of yourself having a cold shower. There's got to be proof. It's got to be cold. So you blast yourself to wake yourself up. Then you got to move straight into exercise, and then you kind of maybe have a cup of tea, and then start your day. And this literally was something that we discussed over a 15-minute kind of chat. We set the group up. I did it for like a day or two. I thought it was quite cool. I posted it on Facebook. 18, 20 people reached out saying, add me to the group, can I have the details? And it kind of started from there. And having those extra hours in the day has then led me to, one of the things I'm trying to understand now is property investment. And I've gone through about 2.5 audibles in the last 10 days I've been doing this. So I read a book by Samuel Leeds. I read another book by a guy called Rob Dix from the Property Hub. I'm now reading a book about like houses with multiple occupants, and I think that and now I'm in the process of maybe this evening putting down my offer for a third property. I think that and sometimes my partner Daniel will say, "Oh, don't rush," and I think that a lot of people don't take decisions as fast as they could. B, I think people like dither when ultimately a lot of the time 85% of the time, I think a lot of us go with our gut. If it feels right, you do it. And sometimes what happens is that people feel right, but then they second guess themselves. And that leads you to like spending a bit more time thinking about it. And when you factor that out by multiples of thousands, when it is related to all of the little thoughts we have, all of the micro decisions, having a chat and deciding to set up a WhatsApp group is a micro decision. We do it all the time with our mates when we're going out on the piss or something. That was a micro decision that is leading to macro results for me. Because when you can stop dithering, trust intuition, zero out kind of analysis paralysis, I think it really like accelerates your ability to make powerful decisions in your life. And that is something that sometimes I find people stumble upon, and you get kind of in the way of yourself. And certainly, it's not for everyone, but that 4:30 a.m. thing is what worked for me. That's kind of, one insight into where it's taken me. And, we've got this group now. Maybe we start charging for it? I've got no idea. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm at the stage where I'm trying things. I'm kind of enjoying myself. I'm not quite sure where it's going to end up, and I'm not certainly someone who's going to say, you know what, I'm that digital marketing guy. I'm the SEO guy. I'm clearly not the fucking SEO guy, even if I run, a relatively decent SEO agency. I just like to tinker, Mike, and the 4:30 a.m. club, and just the things that I'm trying, through which I document on Facebook, are, I guess, kind of just part of the journey that I'm on, mate.
There's a lot of cool nuggets there. I like that. Micro decisions that lead to macro. What did you say? You said micro decisions that lead to macro changes. Or
Yeah, micro decisions that lead to macro results. Yeah, like yeah, you do. I mean, I could probably rant about it a little bit, but I think quick decision making is just so valuable. And I think that the better that we all, including myself, work on that muscle, the bigger results you get, because you fail more. No doubt, I fail a lot, but you also correspondingly win, because when you win, you can win big.
did you have any specific moment, by the way? Because we have known each other for, I mean, it's nearly the best part of a decade now. And we've kind of stayed in touch, and I've got watched you from afar, obviously your Facebook updates, and we've kind of checked in every now and again. But you were doing well, and you always had this something special where you were trying things. But was there a moment, because I've really seen your progress in the last couple of years, something switched? Was there a moment for you? How did that happen? Because I'm sure people are listening like, yeah, this all makes sense, but I feel stuck. So is there something that happened for you?
Yeah, dude, there was. There's absolutely a day. I turned 30, Mike, 3 years ago, and I was living in, I think, Amsterdam. I had just withdrawn my application to the British Special Forces. I applied to 21 SAS. I was going along that journey, going away for the weekends, doing some of their kind of boot camp type stuff. Discovered I wanted nothing to do with it, but had kind of my I don't know, my a kind of a bit of a midlife crisis, if you will. And I think, I remember crying, actually, if I'm being honest. Like, not, it was a weird moment, because I come from a happy family. There's no kind of sob story. I just chosen, I guess, for several years to, in many ways, isolate myself, travel and explore, whilst I figured out what I was trying to do with myself. And I turned 30, and I thought, literally, wow, you know what? I wanna go home, and home was London. I want to be around my family. Um, Living abroad had a lot of there's kind of a lot of sexiness attached to it. It seemed very cool, but fundamentally I felt quite lonely whilst I traveled and moved, because we all gravitate to the things and or the people that we love, right? And I thought, you know what, the people that I love are in London, and I'm 30 now. I'm kind of tired of perhaps being like a nomad as such. And I decided, after the tears were spent, that, right, I'm going to build something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go home, and I'm going to go back to my mum's place, and I'm going to focus. And whatever it is that I'm going to do, I'm going to do it properly. And that was a big change for me, that probably directly corresponds with what you've seen, having watched me over the years, because it was that moment, that my decision to focus on growth rather than perhaps experiential growth, or travels, was what changed for me, Mike. It was certainly then that I decided, mate, to kind of come back to London, and to be like, right, now it's time to build.
That's really interesting, that because I can honestly say that I'm kind of going through a similar thing right now, in the sense that I've always valued, having adventures and having experiences of, traveling around. But the thing about that is that it does really enrich in your life. But on the other hand, it hinders you in some ways, because you don't have that stability that you need. You don't have that base to launch from, so that you can get into routines like you're doing now. It just kind of is very disruptive. So Wow, 30, that cliche turning point. But that's really powerful. That's super powerful.
I listen. Yeah, I turned 30, and that was when I decided, as you said, to start Pearl Lemon. And I appreciate for some people that don't know who the fuck I am. They're like, what do you actually do, dude? I'm a bit confused. I've always been a halfway decent marketer. I decided I'd start a marketing agency, and then from there, honestly, Mike, it's been kind of a kind of a series of micro decisions. I was like, oh, I want to start a marketing agency. My friend approaches me and says, oh, I want to extend my software agency and roll out a marketing arm. I said, oh, let's do it together. We try. We try that for several months. We don't really make a great go of it together because we're not a good fit. I then roll out Pearl Lemon solo in around August 2017, which is about, like what, 24, about 26 months ago, just over 2 years ago. Then I've developed a bit of confidence to try and go it alone. And I guess I get to that stage where I develop enough kind of cash flow to at least pay my bills, move out, and begin to build some capital. And from there, the first year, if I'm being honest, was really all about aggressively trying to grow the business and trying to figure out, how do you sell B2B? What do you do? How do you communicate with clients? And what is it? I don't know what I don't know, and I know what I don't know. And I think also just being open to, like, I've been a big believer in personal development, a big believer in self-help, a big believer in going to like therapy, like coaching. I think that that's been really helpful to me, hugely as well, Mike. Like, when I don't know something, I'm completely cool with that, and I'll kind of ask everybody. I'll download the Audible audiobooks. I'll jump on and take a Udemy course, and it can, both personally and professionally. I've taken read book, with your background, I've read a lot of books on how to communicate more effectively, in a romantic relationship, how to date more effectively, how to cook better, how to do this, and how to cope with feelings of insecurity, and all of this stuff, I think, has been so helpful in being able to, build good relationships with the businesses that I do, build the agency, right? SEO's been an industry that's very much seen as a commodity, and there's a lot of churn. And I have to say that my, desire to self-develop, to travel and work on human communications has been a big part of our retention, because I try and I have a relatively above average handle on figuring out that this isn't an SEO question they're asking, even though it kind of seems like an SEO question. And those bits have been so helpful with getting the business to a stage where I make enough money and make enough capital to go out and then start investing into other things or other businesses. And that was kind of the other key thing, I think, in terms of how I decided to build my foundations. I'm a big believer in frameworks. Like, have a thesis with what you're trying to do. For me, my legacy is not to be an agency owner, not at all. But I do want to make money, and I want to use that money as a vehicle to then figure out what the fuck I want to do with my life.
Absolutely.
And you can probably relate, I expect. Yeah, and I think that that's why I'm still exploring and experimenting. I've put about probably 50 grand just to experiment into alternative investments. I try these entrepreneurial investment schemes into a mortgage miscalculation company, some other like stuff that I try to throw around. I tried one forex trading firm, as you know about the one that I recommend. I tried a different one, lost 10 grand. And then I've moved. I'm trying to. I just think that there's a lot to be said for experimentation. I do believe that if yeah, I just enjoy having a high tempo life, I think, and I always start the day with the attitude that, hey, you can do more. You're capable of more, and that whole thing about holding it. I mean, that's one of the great things that training with the British Special Forces did give me, Mike. So I did turn 30, but something else significant happened. And that was, I went out to Georgia and paid a private contractor who was an ex-Georgian Special Forces sniper to train me for 10 days. I did do these, of course, ultra marathons that you spoke of. I've continued to do them. I've done maybe 8 or 9 marathons this year, a couple of ultras, and one of the biggest things that have been, I think, perhaps a differentiator for me personally is everything depends on reference points. Like hard and doing a lot. They're just really relative terms, aren't they? You can't textbook quantify what being a powerhouse. I think that was a word that you maybe mentioned. Like, what is a powerhouse? It's very relative, isn't it? To Jocko Willink, the former Navy SEAL, I'm a probably extremely ordinary guy. Maybe I'm amazing. Maybe I'm not. Like, I don't know. But I think that when also we engage in things that scare us, that's such a powerful thing, irrespective of where the result kind of takes you. So it's not, I've had a lot of events, by the way. Like I've had more Ironmen that I've been disqualified from because I didn't meet the cutoff times than I've actually completed. And I'll be honest with you and say I've learned far more from my failures, far more than I ever did from my victories. Because when you get punched in the face, you take stock. You kind of reflect upon that and think, wow, that really fucking sucked. Investing in a mortgage miscalculation company and losing £12,000 on stuff I don't understand was really fucking silly, Deepak. Investing 10 grand into a Forex trading company who then are being sued for, having corrupt processes was really fucking stupid, Deepak. But you know what? Then it leads me to, investing into, some relatively better property investments. Then it leads me into the Facebook post you might have saw where, like, last month I made £13,000 with this new Forex company I've been with for 14, 15 months. So I think that, if you accelerate or if you maximize the hours in the day, and it begins with the micro decisions, you know what? The let's fuck it, let's do it. Let's just do it and see what happens. Because it's not really about the result or the outcome that you get from any singular decision you take. The company I'm with now for Forex could completely collapse. My agency, maybe I get banned. We got banned entirely on LinkedIn the other day for violating their terms of service. And that was like a whole palaver. The entire Pearl Lemon group went down on LinkedIn and we had to work hard to get it back. The other day, LinkedIn have overcharged us $3,500. We're trying to claw it back. Or, these things. Upwork banned me the other day and then I had to get my account back. So, like, I think that, the more that you get accustomed to taking risks, the more that you fail. It is true. It is a cliche, but the more robust and rich your experiences come, and then it does to some degree become a numbers game. Something that you do, as you said, will pay off fucking big. And a lot of the time, it's a question of just keep on trying, just keep on figuring things out, and where a lot of that comes from is going out and doing 13-hour runs, because then my reference points are so much different, and my kind of stamina and perseverance perhaps are that much different that it's very useful for me to just keep on getting fucking up every day and just trying stuff and just trying stuff and just trying stuff. And of course on Facebook people, make light of or make a fanfare of course the victories we have, because inherently people post more about that than their losses. But yeah, certainly, this is like therapy, dude. I've been talking for ages. I don't even know if you're there.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yeah, I think certainly, the one for me, the one takeaway is, for me, I'm like, it's like none of this mindfulness stuff, none of this take stock stuff. It's like high tempo decision making. You know what? I'm going to run a marathon. Okay, so you know what? Let's say you pull out your credit card, you book the marathon in Amsterdam or whatever, and let's say you don't even do it, right? Let's say you don't end up even doing the marathon. It's still fucking progress, because you got your credit card out, you did put some money down, you probably did go out on a few training runs, you did talk about it with your mates, and if you then continue in that fashion, you might end up in 3 years from now, running a 100-mile run, somewhere like, the Hard Rock 100. And once you reach that pinnacle, no one gives a shit about all of your failures. apart from you, because you recognize that your failures were, or your victory was really ultimately predicated upon all of those micro experiences that you had and all of those decisions that you made. And I think that, if you have a goal that's worthy enough of the journey, then certainly the journey becomes meaningful. And I think that and I say to anybody who's listening, you're that much more likely to be met with success. Just go out and commit to fast decision making, and you'll see yourself evolve, like, I think, in really quite surprisingly short periods of time.
Wow, that's a great summary. And your passion is really comes through as well. You really have this passion for life, this passion for testing and experimenting and looking into new things. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are missing in 2019, because we live in this society that is based around, like, there's a lot of fear, like from the media and, mainly from the media, to be honest. But there's a lot of fear in society, and people have a lot of fear and they pass it on to others. And then we just get stuck in our routines, and we have a certain comfort in life, a certain level of comfort in life. And then we're like, no, I've got my little house and I've got my little apartment and I've got TV and I can eat out at a restaurant a couple times a week or once a week. And, if I take more risks, I might lose that. And so it's really refreshing to hear someone who, because that's one of my main mantras, taking risks, because life in itself is a risk. If you don't take risks, you lose by default. You lose by, just slowly eroding and not growing. Because if you're not growing, then ultimately you're dying. And you've kind of already, so you got to be living on the edge a little bit. And that's very much what it sounds like you do, like in an extreme way. Most people are like, oh, run one marathon, like, and that'll be it, and you're running, I don't know, 10 marathons. I don't know, maybe 20. How many marathons do you do like a year, would you say? Or Ironmans or?
So this year was the year of, like, so I don't do tons, but I have accelerated the volume in the last couple of years. So this year I think I did maybe 7 or 8 marathons, and two, did I 2 or 3? I can't remember, but I think maybe three ultra marathons. And then I kind of decided that I'd take a break for a couple of months, because now I've transitioned to boxing. I'm training a couple of times a week. But yeah, I agree with you, Mike, that, like, I mean, taking risk is hard. And I think that one of the other things, actually, Mike, that I left out within that story, you said that, you know what, Deepak, like, I felt like, you were doing stuff that was interesting, in the decade that I've known you. But it's really been in the last couple of years. I got a hell of a lot of therapy, Mike, from age 26 to 29. I probably spent more than a couple of 100 hours in therapy, both self-led as well as actual paid therapy, to sort out my mindset, or my psyche, if you will. And that was a big thing for me, dude. That has actually probably been the foundation upon which I'm able to, let's say, confidently take risk. And it's been from there, actually, that I think that I've been able to figure some things out.
That's really interesting, actually, because not many people in your position would attribute success to having therapy. Even it's a lot more accepted in 2019. I think that, and like, I've had therapy as well, and you know what? It was one of the best decisions I made. Like, after my father passed away, I couldn't really make sense of the world anymore. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? So reaching out and getting someone who can help reorganize your thoughts and help understand what exactly is going, and give you that kind of mirror to look at yourself, is so powerful. But where did that decision come from for you? What sparked that?
My parents had an arranged marriage. My mum was 11 and my dad was 13. The first time they saw each other was the first time they got married. And my mum, she had her children. She fell pregnant at 15. She had her first children, my sisters, twins, at 16 years old, and they kind of came to the UK for a better life. And I think, and the reason that story is important was because I've kind of had a bit of a funny upbringing, and I didn't really perhaps appreciate. And by the way, this is not a criticism of my parents. I think, my dad is my fucking role model, and part of my drive comes from wanting to give back to my parents because of everything they've done for me. And I think that Simon Sinek thing about you've got to find your why is true. You've got to find your why that gets you out of bed every day, and it's got to be bigger than yourself, because yourself and your desire to, I don't know, make cash, it won't take you. For those people like me, at least, I think maybe for you, I don't know, but I don't have a vocation. I'm not a man who has a calling in terms of a career or a path. But what does drive me is that feeling that I want to give back to the people who, I think did everything for me, and that was my parents. And what also happened in parallel was, what? My mom had her first child when she was 15 years old, Mike. She dropped out of school at 14 to be a housewife to my dad. She was effectively a child raising children. And my family are from rural India. They moved to the UK in the pursuit of happiness. They did amazingly because they put us all through school. And I didn't really appreciate both what they'd done for me as well as the impact I think it had on my ability to build relationships. And that led to me being hugely insecure for university. So I'd spend a lot of time in the gym, weight training, look good, feel good. I was caught in that cyclical trap that, I look good, I look great in the mirror because I lift weights in the gym. Girls find me attractive, and therefore that's where I draw my power from externally. And that was a negative cycle for me over time. And it led also to, once I got into relationships, beyond someone meeting you on a Saturday evening thinking, oh wow, you're cute, or yada yada yada, um, to a lot of insecurities in relationships, a lot of issues with kind of attachment, a lot of like bad relationships. And I very quickly developed a pattern, a negative pattern, where with both romantic relationships as well as close friendships as well as family, so anyone I had some level of emotional attraction to, friends, family, girlfriends, I just end up having toxic relationships, Mike. And and it was hugely destructive through my 20s, hugely destructive. The businesses I had kind of fell apart. Angel investment that I raised fell apart. I then decided to travel the world and get tattoos and throw myself into other things. So, you know, the undercurrent or the parallel of the journey that I took was ultimately one that was filled with a lot of turbulence and filled, I guess, with a lot of searching, because I didn't have, I think, in hindsight, the tools to, number one, understand what was going on. And I only discovered that really through one night when I was in a really bad relationship with a musician. I used to run a recording studio. I had two studios. I was a rapper. I was trying to grow this business. That was going relatively well. I got into a relationship with this singer. She turned out to be physically abusive. So she'd hit me. All of these things would happen. And I was a bit embarrassed. I didn't tell anybody about it for about good 6 months. I was getting fucking beat up. I was telling no one about it. And I just didn't really know how to handle it. And one night, well, no, very often, I would sit in my studio when no one was around, and I'd just cry. I would just break down and cry. And yeah, things came to a head when I stormed out of her place. She was living in Finchley, I remember, and I had to make a phone call to my brother about 2 a.m. I was 25 years old. I didn't have a car at that time. I still don't have a car now. In fact, I called him and said, "Brother, you got to pick me up," because what had ended up happening was she'd punched me in the face. I got overwhelmed. I slapped her. Her lip started bleeding. This is the first time I'd ever hit her, the last time as well. But she said she'd call the police. I called my brother. I got out of there, and I broke down. My brother discovered what was going on, and one thing, Mike, changed for me. I called the Samaritans because after that moment with my brother, I did not know who to talk to. I did not have any desire to talk to anyone within my family about what was going on. So I was like Googled a helpline, and things had got to such an extreme that I called the Samaritans, and that was a huge turning point in hindsight in my emotional development. And that was the moment that ultimately led me down a huge journey of emotional and personal self-discovery. I think that was founded around very negative and consistently toxic experiences I was having, um, and that I was trying to recover from. And I guess it's as Tony Robbins said that true change comes when the cost of staying the same is greater than the cost of change. And for me, I knew something had to change because things were just going wrong in every relationship I got into, the relationships I had with friends and family. As soon as I got close to someone, things blew up. And that was huge, Mike. I think in hindsight, in changing at the core deep negative beliefs that I had about myself, about self love, about my contribution to the people that I love, about my worthiness, and that has, I think, also been probably the missing part with a lot of people. When I hear bullshit fucking gurus say, just do stuff, man, just think positive, and you're like, no, man, people have such deep problems. And for me, I was very, very fortunate, I'll be honest with you, Mike, that I had a girlfriend who was beating the shit out of me. Because just like many men out there, guys, if you're listening, I've got my ego and I've got my pride, and I've got an inability to really look inwardly about what are those beliefs that stop me from ascending. And it took something like that to kind of dig me out of my own hellhole and move myself onto a path of redemption. So that's also the other thing that you could never have known from just seeing me begin to pop up more and more on Facebook when I turned 30.
Wow. I mean, that's an incredible journey, and thank you so much for sharing that. It's really refreshing, actually, to hear someone have such vulnerability and share something so personal, especially when it comes to like physical abuse, like as a man, because this is something that guys, we're kind of scared to say that, like, it happens, right? And we're very afraid that we're going to get judged for that, and and if we just don't deal with it. So it's so refreshing to hear, and I can totally tell you and as I said, like, I've seen the huge emotional growth. Even if I haven't been in contact with you every day, I've seen that growth. So that's just such an inspiring story. And if anyone out there is listening and they need help, the Samaritans helpline is an awesome place to start, and reach out for therapy. There are people out there that love you and care about you. And I say that because I've seen a lot more like posts on like Instagram and Facebook about like men's mental health, because like men are like three or four times more likely to commit suicide than women. So I really want to just echo those words, that if someone out there is in a dark place and they're just randomly listening to this podcast, like, reach out for help. Even reach out to me, reach out to Deepak. I'm sure we'd be happy to talk to you. But dude, that was really inspiring and so vulnerable of you. And I really think the listeners are going to take some really big lessons from that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was going to say now, just to change thread slightly, because we've talked a lot about the inner world, right? The inner world of like taking risks, your success mindsets, your journey. What about the external? Because I know that because sometimes you post like figures on what your business is doing and the revenue you're closing and deals you're closing and the companies you're working with. So what would you say are the most important pieces of business advice that you've learnt in running? And as you said, you don't have a deep focus, but you have your, I guess, lots of companies you're managing and you're multitasking. So what would you say are the most important pieces of business advice that you've learnt either through your experience or from other people?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I think that all right, guys. So if I'm talking like tactically, like what are the lessons? If we're gonna like, how do you distill for some of the people that are listening, my advice into practical application? So I've got a lot of experience in what I'd call service industries. Okay, I'm not a product guy. I've launched courses and done relatively well, but I'm really much more heavily service orientated. So I'll speak from that place. I think that number one, like read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Why? Because the more that you understand how the other person on the other side of the call or the Skype or the Zoom or the face-to-face is feeling, the more likely you are to win that person over to your cause. Your cause, maybe whether it's a bank roll or a check or a partnership, that's hugely important. How do you break that down into its subsets? So when someone sends, a big thing for me, a realization is that if someone sends you an email, there is no concept of a 9 to 5. If they've got a problem, their problem is the only thing that's apparent in their mind. And the only other thing that's obvious is your absence in terms of being able to solve their problem. Everybody likes fucking problem solvers, solve problems. So that's the second thing. Don't worry about it being outside of your direct remit. People get too caught up in contracts and scopes, but the way that you win people is by just being that guy that can get kind of anything done. You want to become the person that, someone that does business with you relies upon. The next thing is, when someone raises a red flag or raises a hand, be the quickest responder in the room. My guys have you have to respond to any email a client sends within 15 fucking minutes. But anytime, as long as you're in the office or even if you're out, really, everyone has their G Suite installed on their mobile phones. And the thing that you get caught up on is that you don't need to provide the solution within 15 minutes, but you should provide a response within 15 minutes. And when you provide a response, you should also state a timeline and a time zone, because that's the thing that most people don't do. Don't say stuff like, I'll get back to you ASAP. That's vague. Say, I'll get back to you within 6 hours or less. That's specific. So that's like another thing that's been big for us. The other thing is ask for feedback. I have a standing 8-week email that goes out detailing what are all of the worst things about our service. What are the things that bug you? What are the things that irritate you? What are the things that we could definitely do better? It's a horrible email, and I never like receiving them, but my God, it makes you better. My God, it makes you so much better. And then after that, like if you're in a shitty industry, so what I mean by that is if you're, I'm in the digital marketing agency space, okay? And I run an SEO agency. I never compare myself to other SEO agencies because a lot of these guys don't know really how to market themselves. Who did I compare myself against? I compare myself against fashion brands in terms of how our website should look and feel. I compare our content to like funny YouTube gamers. So be wary of who your reference points are. If your industry is shitty, or if you're looking at what the guy next door is doing, unless that guy's a fucking millionaire, don't watch what he's doing, because it's not enough of a paradigm leap for you to become remarkable within your business. That old age adage is true, that for someone to switch from one provider to another, or from one industry to another, you've got to be at least 10 times as good as their current service. Unless they've had a bad experience, then they're just in the market shopping. So you have to, and that can go through to every core of what you do and how you present yourself. So if you're trying to sell and you are in the insurance industry, don't look at other insurers. Go read up stuff on cold callers, or go listen to people that are at the top of their game. So that's the other part of it. And then the final thing that I'd say is that a lot of people confuse rushing things with being efficient. So you can be efficient without rushing things, and a lot of people will perceive you as rushing things, but that's not true. And when we consider other people, be very, very, very wary of who you listen to, what you read, and who you take advice from. For the most part, your friends are great people, but they're not fucking successful. Unless you've got a friend who's literally doing at least triple what you're doing, then take all of their advice with a pinch of salt, because what the fuck do they know? I mean, I do listen to my friends, but hey, you know what? I don't have any friend personally who in 1 year within my industry has made, for example, like £1 million, like within a year, that I can see, like, that I know. So for that reason, I'll go to books, or I'll go to, other spaces, or, I might watch airy bits of YouTube videos, but that's really more for motivation. And that brings me probably to my final point, Mike, that guys, when you're trying to do things, a lot of people have this fad of, yo man, you know what? I'm really into entrepreneurship, bro. I crush Gary Vaynerchuk videos. I crush Les Brown videos. I crush Tony Robbins content. Guys, that is motivational, aspirational stuff. That should be 20% of what you consume. The other 80% should be technically led stuff. Technically led. So what do I mean by that? If you need to set up a website, you must know how to, set up your domain, figure out your DNS records, install a WordPress plugin. If you are going to run Facebook ads, you must have taken a couple of even Udemy Facebook courses. They're like 10 quid each. You could probably get them for free on the resale market. So I think that's the other thing that I've learned along the way, in terms of how you should split your focus. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. Mike, there's some of the things that, have been useful for me.
I've done quite a lot of interviews, and I've met a lot of, entrepreneurial people. So, a lot of the advice is like quite generic advice, as useful as it is, but that was really specific. And there were some things there that were very unique. Things like consume technically led stuff, be a quick responder, and make sure that you're specific when you respond to people in emails, like with a deadline, and just be specific about things. So there were so many really good tips there. I hope people were listening to that. And I super agree as well who you take advice from, because obviously I run like a dating coaching business as well, and people will come to me, I'll run consultations with them, and what I'll say to them is, sometimes I'll say, I follow XYZ person, and not to name names or pick on anyone specifically, but I say, when you are taking advice from someone, look at that person's life, because you're taking on, with all their advice and wisdom and mindsets and advice, you are essentially modeling that person. And if you model that person, you're going to get what they get in their life. And you know what? They may be very good at getting, let's say, short-term like hookups, right? Or one-night stands. But you're telling me your goal is to have a beautiful long-term relationship. So, you got to be careful about where you get your advice and who you get your advice from, because in this day and age, everyone's a guru. That's the thing, right? Everyone's calling themselves a guru, when how many of them have actually walked the walk? So that's super important advice. What should you take advice from, guys? I'd just be so careful with that, because you could be, I heard a quote, I forgot who said this quote, but it's like being a mile south of the North Pole. You can either walk a mile north to get to the North Pole, or you can go south all the way around the world and then get there. You get the wrong advice from someone, you're going to be walking south. So absolutely. Thank you for such a concise list. I know that you're amazing at sales, because you do these live sales calls and you just crush it. So what would you say, because a lot of people are scared about selling. I've worked in some sales roles, so I'm I don't, people sort of have this negative connotation sometimes associated with salespeople. They're a bit sleazy, but that's just a very naive mindset, particularly as like a business owner. So what would you say are your like best bits of advice for someone who wants to sell or, prospect?
Guys, so if you are English or Northern European, if you're listening, recognize your actual biggest inherent flaw, as I did. Us Brits are pretty neutral and flat toned. Look at fucking Ricky Gervais when it comes to comedy. What we don't do is anything that relates to tonal modulation. What is it like when you listen to a Southerner, Greek, Cypriot, Spaniard? My partner, she's Italian. It sounds like a fucking musical, doesn't it? Now, take what you know about technically led sales, whether you're talking through, a technical SEO report or a Facebook ad strategy, and combine it with the energy that someone from the south of Europe has. So when you make that call, don't sound like the same fucking schmuck that everybody else sounds like. Listen to Grant Cardone or any American sales trainer broadly, and listen to the way that they play with tone. They slow things down or they speed things up. And if you begin to be able to play with the melody of your voice and control the narrative through the pace and the power and the punctuation with which you say things, you can make even me giving this short sales advice that much more powerful. And if you take what you know about the technical stuff, objection handling, how to get them to yes responses, how to keep someone on the phone with tonal variation and tonal modulation, guys, you'll be 85 fucking percent better than almost any other fucking Brit on the phone, because I had to learn this the hard way. And it was because I got into a relationship with an Italian woman, and half the time we fucking argued because of the way that I will even say something like, "Yeah, I love you, babe." And they'll be like, "Well, you say I love you, like, oh, pass me the milk." And it's like, what the fuck? And think about that. It's like, yeah, no, I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm really annoyed right now. I'll tell you a funny story. Do you notice, guys, when I say all of those things, they sound exactly the fucking same.
So British,
So
isn't
now
it? It's so goddamn British.
Yeah. And the biggest change for me, Mike, was getting to that relationship, reading those books about, about the love languages and understanding like communication and the nuances. The more it made me fucking realize that, wow, I just have to almost go into a room and say, instead of saying on a personal note, Mike, I really, I'd love to, be someone who becomes, like your intern for this dating gig, versus me saying, Mike, I really love your work. So I just want to say, I'd absolutely love to be your apprentice. It would mean so much to me, pal. Guys, I said exactly the same fucking thing. Who would you choose? That's the one biggest takeaway that almost every modern sales book I've read leaves off the table. That just do what the fucking Italians and the Spaniards do with their voice, but apply what you know about sales, and you'll just start becoming a monster on the phone.
So do you have any, I mean, you manage lots of businesses, you consider yourself like this multitasker. Do you have any business processes or, specific things that you funnel to manage your kind of day and time strategically? Do you have any like high level processes where you get reports, or how do you manage so many different things?
So, guys, your time is limited, so create leverage. So, for me, what's been huge is I have a continual recruitment cycle where I'll look for someone who I can pay $500 a month, who's from a top tier university, who doesn't really need money and has time, but wants to just get shit done. That creates huge amounts of leverage for me. So, I've got, I call her the handyman, Lydia. I pay her a couple of $100 a month. She's an absolute fucking beast. She likes doing anything and everything I throw at her. All of my communication with Lydia happens through WhatsApp. So, for example, if we got off this podcast, I'd probably say, okay, hey Lydia, so I just got off a podcast with a good friend Mike. have a look on Facebook. This is his URL. Please do reach out to him. Say, I really appreciate you being on his show. Send him a connection request from my LinkedIn account, and then maybe have a look who's in Mike's network and produce a quick list for me of 10 people that you think I might be relevant to go onto their podcast on the basis of what you heard. Here's the actual podcast link. Pass it on to the video editing team. Please get it chopped up, and then let's have a chat. That would be an example of about 80% of my actual workday. And that has been very big in creating leverage of time. And then the only other thing that I look at, Mike, is I'm a very top levels numbers guy. So I'll look at, right, if I'm charging someone £5,000 a month, which we do for some of our SEO clients, I look at, right, what is my total cost? And my total cost should never ever be more than, for example, £2,500. Because once you're that profitable, you can stop worrying about the silly little numbers, and you can just start worrying about the big revenue goals. And they're the two things that I try in terms of my process, because I don't, I keep a Trello board that we have to-do lists on, but I never fucking look at the Trello board. And I get people who advise me saying, oh, look at the Trello board, you should do this. And I look at them and I'll be like, well, you don't yet make more money than me, so I don't give a fuck about what you say. When you do, then I'll listen. And that's just the honest truth. I'll be like, look, if you're a millionaire, I do want to learn from you, but until you're not, then my process for me works. And they're probably the two primary things that, guys, if you're not using WhatsApp for work, I think you're an idiot. I think that example of a voice note can be a vehicle. Lydia, so I've got this idea for a fitness boot camp that I'm starting with my friends. So it's called One More Rep. Please, can you go into my Google Domains account, look for the domain onemorerep.co. Please buy it. Once you've bought it, log into looker.com. That's an automated logo maker tool. Please go and generate a couple of test logos, save them as drafts in there. Show me them on WhatsApp screenshot as soon as you've got it. Once you've done that and we approve one, please purchase it. Then go to socialnamechecker.com, buy the first 30 domains that relate to the social media profiles. Looker, when you buy the premium package, which is £60, will give you all of the social images for One More Rep. Go ahead and upload all of the various social images. For background on me, go to LinkedIn, have a look at my sports related endeavors, build some test or preparatory content. Once you've got that done, then go ahead and pass that on to Abdul. He's going to start developing the site. Also look at some of our competition. Think about a framework for a sitemap. Please get that done. Let me know if all of it makes sense. Listen back to this voice note probably 2 or 3 times. Make a note of it all. And the deadline for this is 72 hours from the point of leaving this voice note, at which point I'd like to see potentially all of those live. Let me know if you've got any questions.
Wow.
I would send a voice note like that while I'm pissed in the pub at 2 a.m. That's actually how we... Yeah.
Poor Lydia.
That's dude, that's my process, man.
That's cool though. That's cool. And it's funny you bring up like the Trello boards. I'm like, I wonder if Elon Musk is working from Trello boards. You know what I mean? I don't think Elon Musk is working from Trello boards.
Exactly. I don't think any of these guys are, dude. Or if they are, there's like 2 things on them or something, or there's a million things because they never look at them.
Right. No, that's really cool. Having those right people around you that you can like delegate tasks to, and especially someone you really trust, and that efficiency of sending that voice note. That's really cool. I haven't heard that before. But before we wrap up, a couple. I know I said a couple more questions ago.
No, keep. But it's okay, Dave. It's okay, man.
What, in terms of top books? You mentioned Dale Carnegie's "How to Win Friends and Influence People." What are the best books that you recommend someone reads?
So when it comes to reading, guys, this is where I do recommend a combination of like mindset and strategy. So it depends upon what you're trying to go for. But I'll just speak to the books that have been very powerful for me. So the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone was significant. It was probably the first Audible that I listened to twice in a row consecutively. As soon as I finished it, I started it again, like probably a day later. So that was 24 hours of the 10X Rule. That was huge because the fundamental premise of the book is that, achieving the kind of success that you want to achieve will be 10 times as hard as you think it is, and you'll still get 10 times less the result than you think you'll get from it. And if you recognize those things, then you can truly understand how important it is to live a 10x life, and what you need to do to achieve your goals. And everybody fucking underestimates how hard it is to be successful. That was a big book for me. Another big book for me has been, you know what, Mike, to be honest with you, I don't have specific books, but I do have a process actually that does help me with learning, and that does lead me to a lot. It helps me. So, guys, my process is that I'm not a deep learner. Okay, so I do task switch. So I go to Blinkist, which is an app download. It's cross-platform. It condenses books into 15-minute reads. So when I want a quick data download, I will read a 15-minute Blinkist, maybe about a subject, or I'll download 3 or 4 books and I'll kind of read them. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as soon as you find a book or an Audible or a YouTube video boring, stop fucking watching it. Don't commit to finishing something that you feel you're getting no value from, because you'll be disengaged, demotivated, and therefore wasting your time. So that was a big thing for me. And then I'll listen to Audible when I do want to go deep. And then when I want to kind of quick fire, like learning that's technically led, then I'll do video stuff. That's Udemy. And then I'll also have a style. So I said the 15-minute reads on Blinkist. I don't really ever pick Audibles unless they're outliers that are more than a couple of hours. And then I'll always listen at like 1.8x speed. I get a bit uncomfortable at 2x, depending upon the speed of the speaker. And then, just to wrap it up, because you might still be like, "Oh, Deepak, I just want some fucking books, mate." I'd say, yeah. So Grant Cardone, the 10x rule, Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone, anything by Zig Ziglar. Guys, I think that sales is it's like the number one skill that you need to learn, because all of this like modern day mindset stuff that comes from either Gary V or even Tony Robbins, NLP, positive, like there's probably loads of them, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, guys. All of it came from fucking salesmen. All of it came from the Sunday salesman who would travel from town to town hawking his Bible book or whatever else he was peddling, because that was the stuff that existed like in the days of fucking Al Capone. That's the stuff that existed way before there was any of this mindset stuff. And you know what? The genesis of like CBT, of NLP, of fucking all of this stuff came from sales. So go to the actual originals and educate yourself on motherfucking sales, and you'll learn mindset. You'll learn about how to sell. You'll learn about how to upsell, downsell, cross sell. And for me, if I'm being honest, Mike, that has been also a significant change in the revenue leaps that I've made. That is what got me to the place where I'd sign £5,000 a month contracts for SEO on a monthly basis for, within a couple of phone calls. And it came from actually the sales books that I read. So guys, read anything by Grant Cardone, read anything by Zig Ziglar. Jordan Belfort, I struggle with a little bit because I don't find him as entertaining as a narrator. So that would be more technically led, but you have to account for the boredom. So it depends upon your focus. I think he's got amazing content and he is really good, but you might get bored out. So broadly speaking, Grant Cardone, Zig Ziglar, Jim Pancera was also very good. I've got very much a sales focus with this, as you'll notice, because it transitions so well into other spaces. You don't need to read The Secret. You don't need to read The 4-Hour Work Week. You don't need to read Chicken Soup for the Soul or anything that relates to that if you do read a lot of sales psychology books.
Perfect. Thank you for those recommendations. Final question for you. What does the future hold, and where can people find you?
Guys, you can find me on Facebook if you try and friend Mike, if you know him. Or you can just kind of Google me. But yeah, man, you know what? Like, guys, no grand plans. I'm going to keep trying to do interesting shit, and I'm going to keep trying to make interesting connections. I do have hopes to keep on growing the Pearl Lemon Group, however it plays out, and to use what I know about marketing and sales as a vehicle to try and build other things. So I'm excited for the future, Mike. And it's I'll finish up by just saying you've given me a great opportunity, and thank you so much to almost kind of speak to myself for an hour, which is probably why people love being on podcasts.
Yeah, thank you very much, Deepak. If you enjoyed this episode, please go over to iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify, subscribe to us. If you think we deserve a 5-star rating, then please leave us a rating. We also have exclusive show notes and bonus content over at whosgoingtostopme.com, so I highly recommend you check that out. For daily lessons and nuggets of advice, please head over to our Instagram @StopMePodcast. Until next time.